Hi, I'm Bruce Huhmann, and today we're going to talk about stakeholders. A company is part of a network of relationships with stakeholders, who are the people who are affected by a company or whose actions affect the company. Chester Barnard, in The Functions of the Executive, describes an organization as a cooperative effort of many people. Thus, the organization's survival depends on its relationships with its environment and its ability to satisfy people who interact with it. Executive responsibility involves suppressing personal interest in the service of this cooperative effort. In the 1960s, organizational management began to explore stakeholders. However, attention to stakeholders really took off in the 1980s with the publication of Ian Mitroff's 1983 Stakeholders of the Organizational Mind and R. Edward Freeman's 1984 Strategic Management, a Stakeholder Approach. Freeman's book is considered the first work in what is now known as Stakeholder Theory. Stakeholder Theory addresses how a company should behave ethically. Freeman defines a stakeholder as follows. He says, a stakeholder in an organization is any group or individual who can affect or is affected by the achievement of an organization's objectives. Freeman warns that for stakeholder theory to work, a superficial view of stakeholders is insufficient. Instead, one must investigate the specific groups interacting with the firm and the actual complex interactions and relationships between them and with the firm. The stakeholder view stands in opposition to the shareholder profit maximization view offered by Milton Friedman. Remember, Milton Friedman said that the only social responsibility of a business is to maximize profits without violating the law. He went so far as to imply that it would be detrimental to society to conduct business to achieve any other social responsibility. Friedman's view is grounded in the property rights of shareholders, but the law itself cannot cover everything that is wrong. And the law itself can be corrupt because of influence from powerful wealthy interests or political leaders who are bigoted or autocratic. So if the pursuit of shareholder profits goes so far as to do questionable but still legal activities, then that could be a problem. Although managers are agents of the owners, the managers have their own personal ethics that make them uncomfortable doing what they view as wrong. This compels them to do what they view as right. For example, Merck has spent over 30 years donating Mectizan, a pharmaceutical it developed to treat river blindness in remote areas of Africa, Latin America, and Yemen. Now, this violates Friedman's shareholder primacy view because Mectizan was costly to develop and intended for a target market mostly of poor people, so there was little hope of profits for the shareholders. But there have been benefits to Merck from the Mectizan donation program. First, it likely fits with the personal ethics of Merck's management. Second, employees want to make a positive difference in the world, so this helps Merck attract and retain talented employees. Third, many people criticize Big Pharma, but Merck can show this positive work that they do as well. So this should help their brand reputation, feelings of goodwill from consumers and investors, and may help them avoid costly government regulation or interference. Starting with Ed Freeman, many business school researchers have worked on the development of stakeholder theories. Stakeholder theory asserts that managers should make decisions based on the potential effects on their stakeholders. Marketers and others in business may address ethical issues at different levels. We may face personal ethical issues, issues at an organizational level, issues at an industry-wide level, and issues at a societal or global level. Different stakeholders are present at each of these levels. Freeman's book does not deal with questions of how firms should treat stakeholders. In the 1990s, business ethics researchers began to consider the firm's moral obligations to stakeholders. For example, Donaldson and Preston argue that a more expansive idea of property right lets stakeholders have legitimate claims on the value produced by the firm. When making a decision, a stakeholder framework helps us see the agreements, collaborations, and even confrontations that exist between stakeholders. We can have both internal and external stakeholders. Internal stakeholders include functional departments within the organization's employees, board of directors, and managers. The organization's external stakeholders include interest groups, non-governmental organizations or NGOs, its consumers, its competitors, suppliers, the media, advertising agencies, and government regulators. This figure shows some of the major stakeholders in the organization's performance. To help remember all these different types of stakeholders, Some people call this CCC Gomez. This acronym is an effective way to remember the organization's stakeholders: customers, community, creditors, government, owners, managers, employees, and suppliers. For example, the stakeholders in a health-related social marketing campaign might include physicians and other medical providers, patients and their families, governments, health insurance companies, pharmaceutical and medical supply companies, and the broader communities. Each of these stakeholders could then be categorized in terms of their power and interest in that social marketing issue. Stakeholder power is the ability of stakeholders to achieve their desired outcome or influence our organization. Stakeholder interest is the level of engagement, concern, or stake that the stakeholder has in the issue. The strategies that we use will change across stakeholders in different quadrants of this grid. First, if we look at those people who have high power and low interest, we call these people the context setters. As marketers, we want to involve these context setters, providing enough information and effort to keep them satisfied, but not boring them with our message. Key players have immediate power and interest. These are the current decision makers with regard to the issue. As marketers, our strategy should be to partner with or manage these stakeholders. This is the group to which we want to devote the greatest effort in satisfying their demands. We will want to engage these key players fully and effectively if we want to achieve our objective. Next, let's look at the groups that have less power. Bystanders have no immediate interest or power with regard to this particular situation. However, they might change in the future and join another group. So as marketers, our strategy with these bystanders is to inform them, but not to bore them. We want to devote minimal effort to this group and mostly focus on monitoring to see if their interest or power changes. The last group is called subjects. These people are interested, but they lack power. And because they lack power, but are keenly interested in the issue, they may feel either content or frustrated, depending on how this issue is going for them. Our strategy as marketers with this group is to keep them informed. We want to listen to them, consult with them, hear what some arising major issues might be, overlooked or inadequate areas that we could improve upon, and perhaps even help them improve their rapport and relationship with other stakeholders to enhance their power. There are three primary questions that are the focus of discussion among business ethics researchers in regard to stakeholders. The first is a question of identification. Who should the firm identify as its stakeholders? This isn't as easy as it may sound. Even groups to whom the firm does pay attention, the firm may not believe that it has an ethical obligation to. A principle-based ethics viewpoint would use an ethical principle to determine who to include as a stakeholder. For example, Robert Phillips uses the principle of fairness to argue that a firm has an obligation to all of those from whom it willingly receives benefits. From this fairness principle, Phillips distinguishes legitimate stakeholders, who are those people who have claims based in fairness or reciprocity, and derivative stakeholders, those whose claims on a firm indirectly derive from a relationship to a legitimate stakeholder. On the other hand, Mitchell, Agel, and Wood argue that there are three critical elements in assessing stakeholders' influence: the stakeholders' power, legitimacy, and the urgency of the issues. Once again, power has been defined as the ability to exercise one's will over others. Legitimacy relates to socially accepted structures that help define whose concerns or claims really count. And urgency captures the dynamics of the time-sensitive nature of stakeholder interactions. Power and legitimacy may be independent, but the urgency component sets the stage for dynamic interactions that focuses on addressing and resolving ethical issues. The second major question in stakeholder analysis involves distribution. Firms create different types of value and cost over time. This creates complications for the distribution question. For example, a firm that harms the environment deprives the local community of intangible goods, which include things like quality of life or peace of mind, that cannot be offset by money. Consider the following situations as far as a distribution controversy might go. For example, how should an airline decide how much baggage to allow inside the plane versus in the luggage hold underneath? Fuel cost, and hence shareholder profits, are unaffected because the plane's still going to carry the same amount of baggage, either inside or outside the passenger compartment. Thus, the airline must decide how to distribute the good or value between two competing stakeholders. Customer stakeholders desire convenience, so they want their bags inside with them. Yet, employee stakeholders desire safety. Flight attendants are often injured helping passengers with their oversized baggage. Phillips argues that the firm owes distribution of value in proportion to the stakeholders' contribution to the firm's success. The problem with this view is that some groups, like the local community, may offer few tangible benefits to the firm, but ethically should deserve some consideration if the firm is going to do something that will harm, say, local property values or the quality of life or the health of local residents.